Yo, 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 yo. Yes, what's up, my people? What's up, Discover family? Discover with Pharrell. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. So, welcome back to another episode of, Discovering Yourself. Thank you so very much for being here, for being a subscriber, for being a returning subscriber. And for those guys who are new, thank you for being here. Please go ahead and hit that button so that we can grow our family and so that we can continue discovering ourselves. And so today we got another beautiful episode. And today I'm going to talk about just getting started, right? Getting started with a project that you've been thinking about for the longest period of time, getting started with everything you've been planning, right? You know, somebody said, when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so I've been, thinking about that word and thinking about how I need to plan my life, how I need to plan, my future, how I need a plan to make things work. Because if you just do things haphazardly without a plan, then you definitely fail, right? And so everybody needs a plan in their life, a plan for their future, a plan for their job, a plan for whatever you're doing. If you just write down what you need to do. For example, if I need to do a certain video, I have to write it down. Like I have this idea, I have this idea. If I don't write them down, I'll forget and I'll not even have, I'll not do my research. And so today I'm just gonna encourage you guys, like whatever you've ever wanted to start, just get started now, right? Just start with the baby steps because if you don't get started, you'll never do it. You'll never encounter the hardships, the challenges that come about with that project that you want to do. And so I'll just give a very, very good example about myself. So, long story short, when I was growing up, in primary school, I used to be a bright kid and I used to read a lot. In my primary school, I used to read a lot of storybooks, small, novels and everything. So I used to be a reader. I used to love literature. I used to love writing compositions. And I remember in primary schools, they used to read my compositions before the class, right? Like your composition is so good that the teacher just takes it and reads it in front of the classroom. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing quite a good job. And so that thing just came out of me like effortlessly. Like I used to love English. English was one of my favorite subjects since way in memoriam. And you know what happened to my mathematics. Story for another day. So I used to love English, and when I finished my I passed very well in my primary school examinations, and then I went to high school. In high school, I also advanced, and I was like, man, I love English, and I used to do very well. And so I remember when we did our KCSE, that is national examination. I had an, I think I had either I can't remember. I think I had an A or an A minus in English, and so you can tell I loved literature, and so I used to read a lot. And so in high school, before I graduated high school, I started writing. I started writing my own stories. I started writing books, fiction stories. And I remember one time I wrote a play, and I remember it had like 13 cast members, and I was writing this story. It was flowing so good. I had a small, writing book. It was a very small book, and so I was writing there. I had this story on my mind, and I was like, let me just write it down. And when I finished, I gave it to my English teacher, and she was like, "Did you write this?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, wow, you've done a good job. Like, I couldn't even write such a story. Like, I couldn't write such a play. And I was so excited. I remember I was in Form 3 in my third year of high school. And so, what happened, I think when I finished high school, I, before I finished high school, I also started writing another book, right? It was a novel. It was a novel. I started writing it, and I think when I just put my hands into writing, ideas just flow. And so, what happened after I finished high school? I went to a certain college, an agricultural college, and then because I wanted people to read my book. I wanted people to read the what do we call it? The play that I had written, because I was so proud of myself. I was so proud of it. I felt so good when the teacher complimented me. So I gave it to somebody to read and tell me like, what do you think about it? And so I gave her the book, my play, and she read it. That was in 2012. I mean 2011, and I'm until now I've never seen the book. So I don't know what happened with the book. I don't know what happened with the play. She never gave me back my play. Can you just imagine? So the all the efforts that I had put in, everything that I had done with that play, it just came down like to shambles and everything. And so I was so heartbroken, and I was like, I'll never write again. Like, I didn't have the morale. If somebody can just stay with my book, they never returned it. That was my piece of work. You can just feel like all the efforts have just gone down to the drain. I felt so bad. And so, whatever book I was writing, the other fiction story that I was writing, I put it on hold, right? So I never wrote it again. And, I went back to college. I started writing again. I didn't feel like writing the story. And then it just disappeared like that. And so many years. So last year I was staying home, and I was like, oh, I had an injury, and I didn't go to work for quite some time. And I was like, wait, Pharrell, what are you doing? You have something in you. Like, you can write. Why are you wasting yourself? And I was like, maybe let me just write a story about my life, because I like encouraging people, like not to give up. And so I was like, let me just write about my life, the experiences that I have passed through. And I was like, yes, that's the right thing to do. And so I was like, let me just get started. Then I was like, no. And then one day I said, enough is enough. I took my computer, my laptop, and then I started writing. I started writing my story. And this is the book I'm talking about, right? From grass to grace. This is my book. So I wrote this book within 2 months. You know, this is 100 and something pages. Like, it's a 100 page book. And then there's a lot of pages that I removed because I was like, oh, I'm saying too much. But what am I saying? If you don't get started with whatever is in your mind, right, you'll never make it. Somebody said, talent without action is dead. Talent without action is dead. Look at all these people, famous musicians, famous sportsmen and women. Like, they have to put in some work so that they can succeed. Because even if you have a talent of like playing soccer, playing football, playing basketball, you do have to dedicate your time. You do have to go for practice. You do have to eat well. You do have to have all those kind of things, right? If you don't put in the work, you never see the results. You never be a better player. So if I didn't get started, I said enough is enough. You have to produce this book. You have to write. You have something in you, right? You have that talent. Just put it into works. Don't worry about anything. Even if the book will have mistakes, that's your first book, right? There's a lot of books that have mistakes, right? So why don't you just write? Why don't you just communicate what you want to communicate in a book? And that's what I did. I started writing. And let me tell you something. When I started doing it, I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back any other day. I was like, man, I need just to just wake up and write. And the story kept on flowing each and every day until I finished. Then you send it to the editors and people to read it. And we produced a book right there. What am I saying? Me writing this book was, it opened up my mind, and I was able to see a better version of myself. and I was able to encourage myself, and I was able to inspire myself. Like, wow, if you can write this book, what else can you do? What other books can you do? What other things can you produce? And lo and behold, I was like, if you don't stop the laziness, you have to stop the laziness. If you don't stop the laziness, then there's nothing you can do. A lot of us, we have so many things inside us. A lot of us have been blessed with so many things, but we do not realize, because what we need to do, or what we are waiting for, is just manna to fall from heaven. It's just people to give us handouts. But you gotta put in some work. Whatever talent you have, whatever thing that you have, you gotta put in some work, because you'll be better at what you're doing than any other person. Everybody was given something they are good at, and before you know what you're good in, you have to put it in some work. You have to discover what you are, what you have, and put in some work just to get started right now. It don't matter. Just start writing. And this is something good about writers. I learned something like, whatever is in your mind, just jot it down on paper. Like, just write it. Don't worry about the mistakes you're making. Don't worry about the spelling mistakes, the grammar, and everything. Just write. Let the ideas flow. When the ideas flow, and then later on you can come and check them out. And that's how you continue. That's how you become better, right? This is my first book. My second book will be a better version of this, right? I'll write better, because when we were doing so many the editing and everything, I learned so many things. So you cannot just perfect your craft within one day. You cannot just wake up one day and be the best. you know Maybe some people who are geniuses might do that, but most of us, you have to put in some work. And that's how I produced my book. That's how I wrote my book, because I knew I could write for the longest time possible. But I didn't have the morale. I didn't. I was just down there. I was like, I cannot do it. But when I just put my finger on those keys, I was able to produce something. And you can do it too. It doesn't matter if it is a book you're writing, it doesn't matter what you're doing. But that skills that you think you possess, just put in some work, just put in some effort, and you see like resounding results. So, guys, don't remember, don't give up on what you know you can do. And talent without work, it is totally dead, right? Don't forget to purchase my book. It's on Amazon, From Grass to Grace by Valeri Modoni. So it's on Amazon. Just go there and you can get it and support my work. Until next time, discover yourself.